Great evening, everybody. Great evening. I welcome you all to the Blue Table Talk. First, let me welcome you to Cedar Creek Community Church, where I am the pastor of these great people, and I thank all of you for coming out tonight. The Blue Table Talk is a place where we do real conversations to promote real change, and so we just have open conversations about what's going on in society, what's going on in the world, and my main focus is how can the church help in all these different areas. And so I try to use my connections to people that I know to bring them in. And so since we're going back to school, or the kids are going back to school next week, the educators are already there. Freedom is over. And so we wanted this month to talk about education. There's so much going on in education, so much going, some right things, bad things, things that need to change. And so we just wanted to have this conversation so we can talk about some things, and we have these great panelists up here and also the community. And so we are live. So if you can go to the Cedar Creek Community Church Facebook page or on YouTube and share this for me. So if everybody could go online, if you got Facebook, go to the Cedar Creek Community Church Facebook page and share this live. That'll help us get the word out more. And I'm going to introduce our panelists in 1 second. Give me one. Somebody doing what they're supposed to be doing. All right, so we're going to introduce our panelists, and we're going to get right into it. We have some questions that I've sent out to our panelists, and we'll go through a few of those, and we'll have an opportunity for those of you who are in the audience to actually ask questions, and we're just going to have an open dialogue. And so I can't do this all the time when I'm in the school, but since this is my church, I'm going to open up in prayer, all right? Let us pray. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you. God, we thank you for this day. This is truly a day that you have made, and we're happy to be able to rejoice, and we are glad in it, God. We thank you for this opportunity to have conversations, God. We thank you for the wisdom that we can get from each other, God. We thank you for what today can be a catalyst for change in this community, this state, this nation. God, we thank you for all of our children, all of our educators, all of our parents, the community leaders who are here. God, we know that you have great things in store for all of us this year. So, God, we just pray that your will be done, God. Let some things come up tonight that we can use to build each other up, God, and let some real stuff happen, God, so that we can see some real change in this world. So we just thank you tonight. Let everything be done in decency and order, God. We give you the praise. We give you the glory and honor. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So we're going to start here. Close to me, we have Dr. Brandon Ross, who is the verifying principal of Lower Richland High School. We can clap. We have Bishop Wendell Sumter, who is an educational leader and consultant. All of them are special, but our very special guest tonight, Ms. Sylvia Wright, the Democratic nominee for South Carolina Superintendent of Education, is with us tonight. Amen. I'm going to give Ashley her shout out. This is our plug. Ashley got it. So we're all right. Next, we have Ms. Shelley Williams, a fine board member of Richland County School District 2. Have my friend and brother, Dr. Travian Capers. He works for the University of South Carolina. I'm not sure which school. School of Medicine. He's also the pastor of Zion Benevolent Baptist Church. And we have one of my favorite students, Zanaya Gant. She's a student at South Carolina State University, alumni of Richland Northeast High School. And beside her, the principal of that wonderful school, Dr. Marlon Thomas, the principal of Richland Northeast High School. All right, so we're just going to have some real conversation. And so I got my person, Dallas. Can you go to the first question on the thing? I don't think that's the first one, but we'll do that one. Okay, so it says student behavior is a concern across the country. Being an assistant administrator, assistant principal, that was one of my main jobs the last 2 years, dealing with student behavior. I see all kinds of stuff. And so Any of you can start off, as we have no particular order. What do you believe is what is driving the increase in our discipline issues on all levels, elementary, middle school, high school, and some of people are even seeing it in college? Who wants to start? Don't be afraid.
Hello. Okay. So for me, I believe a lot of it has to deal with access and engagement for students. And what I mean by access is students being able to access the right resources that they need to be successful within a school setting. And sometimes we always say like it starts before they get to the schoolhouse, things like that. But also when they're at school, what do they have access to be successful? Sometimes behavior comes out of being placed in the wrong classes that they're not able to perform in properly. Sometimes behavior comes from feeling less than, mental health issues that we need to address in those areas. And then also it comes from being able to be engaged within the school setting. And how do we engage our students in those areas?
I think Rita Pearson said it best when she said students don't learn from people they don't like. I think it's important that educators in our classrooms, in our schools, build relationships with students. I think that's really important. I know that we hold our students accountable, and we want to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do, and we want to make sure that they are disciplined well. But I think one of those things, and one of those key things, is having that kind of relationships with students where they understand that you care about them, but yet you have high expectations for them as well. I think that's really important. I was laughing earlier and telling him that I was, assistant principal at Lower Richland High School, where he's going to be principal. And one of the things I think that allowed me to be short and be successful with students there was because they respected me and I respected them. Amen. They knew that I cared about them, not just about their academic success, but their success overall. So I think that that's really, really important. I know especially in your rural communities, it's really important that you build those kind of relationships, because once you build those relationships, I used to have what I called informants at Lower Richland High School. So if there was a fight that was going to happen later on that day, they like me so well, they'll just walk past and say, Mr. Stump, you better go by the K building. They're getting ready to fight. Because you built those relationships with them where they understood that. So I think that's important in our classrooms, that we build those relationships where students believe that you believe in them.
So I'll talk briefly. I agree with what both of the panelists have already said. I'll also add two words that really stick out to me when I think about this question: connection and value. Right, and so we want our students to be connected to school. And so there's this thing called social bonding theory, and I'll summarize it for you. In essence, you give students something to hold on to that's meaningful and of value to them. They'll do whatever they have to not let it go. Right, and so for a student like me, I was naturally academically inclined, and so I understood the purpose of school and why I went to school, and I could get value from that because I saw my mom go to school and go to school again and go to school, so I understood that value. For some students, it might be the basketball team. For some students, it might be a club or organization. For some students, it might be a person. Right, and so we need to understand what binds students to school so that they can do school, because it's not always just about the schoolwork, right? Sometimes it's about those extra things that makes students want to do school. And so going back to the relationships, we need to form connection. We need to make large schools feel small, adopt smaller learning communities. And so that is immensely important in this day and age, especially when you go back to talk about student engagement, like Ms. Williams said. And I'll also say value. Right, we want our students to understand the value of learning, and I think that in some cases has lost its place, and so we need to reinstill that in our students as well, so that they value learning and the outcomes that come with it. We know that there is a clear and apparent attack on public education, and I won't really get into that or address that, but we need to help our students and our families understand why that is, right? And so. Yeah, Ms. Wright.
Thank you. It's like double Dutch, trying to jump in. But Ms. Williams mentioned mental health. And one of the things that I see is missing, is not concurrent in each district, is social emotional learning. There's a curriculum for our elementary students to teach them social emotional learning skills. When there's a behavior, for example, my grandson, he says, I'm grouchy like the Grinch, I need to take a nap. When I heard him say that, there are two things that came to mind. My daughter taught him what it means to be grouchy, and second, a strategy to deal with it. I feel like if we give our young students in elementary, those lower levels, these strategies, there's some behaviors we can curb when they get to the higher grade levels. So that's just one of the strategies that I'm thinking of, how we can implement, have more districts implementing social emotional learning at the elementary level to help us at the secondary level.
I just want to add when you said something about social emotional. So the problem with that is, like, I wholeheartedly believe that social emotional should be incorporated, but with the restrictions that they have now, you can't call it SEL anymore. Right. You have to find other ways to be creative, which to me waters down what you're trying to do and doesn't give the transparency that needs to happen. So then when we talk about behavior again, there are laws that have been put in place and policies that have been put in place that allows us not to address certain issues to the capacity in which we need to address them. And because now districts have SEL people district-wide, but they have to retitle those positions and they can't call them SEL, and there's certain things that they can do and can't do when they go into classrooms. So that is one of the things that I wish that we can combat so that we can address some of those issues when it comes to the behavior and things like that too.
So just to clarify, you're saying that they can't teach them strategies for their behaviors?
They can,
Okay.
but it's how in which they do it now, and you can't call it certain things anymore like you did before.
Right.
Yes.
You just have to do like grandmama and them did back in the day. You have to go back to the old school way of teaching kids, because if again, academics are extremely important, but if we can't get them focused in class and engaged in the lesson, and the teachers having management issues, then that's where you lose some of the kids. So you got to make sure that when you're selecting staff members for your school, that they're a fit for your school. And I know that there's a struggle to find qualified teachers, but I think we have to be mindful of who we put in front of our kids and try to find the best fits possible. Now, are kids going to like every one of their teachers? Absolutely not. We know that, right? It's a reality. They're not going to like everybody. But what I found is most of the times the kids that don't like the mean teacher, what they call the mean teachers, later on in life, they come back and say, you know what? You were mean, but I really learned something from you, So I think we have to not be afraid to teach the whole child. Not be afraid to teach the whole child. We don't have to call it whatever they don't want us to call it, but we can still do it.
I'm glad both of you guys on the end said about relationships, because I know I've seen that relationships, because as a black male educator, when I first got in, they always put you with the bad kids because they feel like you can handle it. I was like, I want the honest kids. I want the less behavior kids sometimes. But I was able to handle them because there was some students that they couldn't get nobody to do anything in their classroom, but he did work in my class because I created that relationship. And like you said, Bishop Sumter, I had snitches. I knew who to go to get the video, because they go in the bathroom and do all this stuff. And a lot of stuff they're doing, it's a question about social media. We'll go, Dallas, can you go to the question about social media? See if you can find that one. They see it on social media, so they think it's the norm. And so they do it at school. And so we have to find a way to promote what we want them, how would I say it? Promote how to model good behavior. Just like as teachers, we have to model what we want them to do in class. As parents, we have to model it and make sure our students are around people who know what to do and what not to do. I grew up in Brooklyn Baptist Church, and that's one thing that I knew they prepared us for. When I went to school, college, I was able to do public speaking because you had no choice. You had to do Easter speeches. You had to be in the plays. You had to learn Bible verses. You had to do that. But I think now parents are a little lenient. We try this gentle parenting stuff. Society, and we're getting away from some of that stuff. And so now I think something's missing, and we've got to find our way back to that. So the next question we can go in, what impact is social media having on student learning, mental health, and relationships?
I can say, like, from a student aspect, looking at it now, I feel like social media plays a big part in, like, how students view each other, how they view or, like, their lives should be. And it kind of has a negative effect because social media paints you like a false reality of, like, what things are supposed to be and what it's supposed to look like when that's not someone's actual life that they're posting. So, like, for instance, like, high schoolers are thinking that they're supposed to have this fast car or, like, you know, have millions of dollars, like, just a false narrative. And then they bring that into the school system with them as well. So creating these false, like, ideologically, like, idols of, like, what their lives supposed to be like kind of, like, messes with their reality. And then that in turn comes into the school system as well.
I didn't realize how much anxiety students have if they don't have access to technology or depending on what comments students are giving them on their post. It creates so much anxiety for a lot of our students. They can't be without it because they're so attached to it. And also they're super concerned about what people think about them. So it creates this another layer that teachers oftentimes have to focus on. So when students come to school, we just think that they're ready. But there are factors, unfortunately, that impact their ability to learn on that day. And one of them, regardless of what we believe, is social media. And unfortunately, teachers are trying to teach math, English, science, and social studies. We have school psychologists and school social worker. But believe it or not, that is an area that we also have to focus on. Because they don't want to put it down. They're obsessed with it. And unfortunately, it takes away from the learning, and they are literally picking up their phone, literally, every 2 to 3 minutes. So teachers now have to compete against social media, and I'm just going to be honest, social media will continue to win each and every time. So it's something that we have to work to combat.
I also want to say I agree with everything that they said, and I think it leads to this point, and I'm gonna make it quick, is social media breeds insecurities amongst our students. It is unbelievable. I can say a lot about social media, but what I have learned is that it creates insecurities with our students, which leads to the anxiety that Dr. Thomas was talking about. If you go to a student's social media page now, you probably won't see their face in the picture. You know, their pages don't have any pictures up, not of them, not of their family members, not of their closest friends. I thought that was the purpose of it. You go to Instagram, they don't have anything, right? It's because they're so insecure about what other people are going to say about them, you know. My daughter, I have a 17-year-old high school senior, and if one strand of her hair does not look good in the picture, Daddy, don't you post the picture. Don't post a picture of me. We had to retake her whole senior yearbook pictures because she didn't like the 15 pictures that the photographer took. So she wanted to retake them. And guess what? We retook the pictures. We retook the pictures. But it goes to show how insecure kids are about their appearance because, like the Queen of South Carolina State said, you know, students feel like they should be perfect, you know, and no one is. And so they post pictures like this with their hands over their face. You know, they think it's cool. They want to show that they're cool, but really what they're doing is they're hiding what they feel is a deficiency. And so we have to make sure that we are lifting our students up and letting our, you know, young men know that, you know, you're handsome, you're made in the image of God, and letting our young ladies know that you're beautiful, you know, and that's a part of our responsibility as educators, as a community, as a church, is to make sure that we're lifting our young people up so that they know what value that they bring, and no matter what anybody else thinks, you know, they are not that. And so, Bishop?
Yeah, I think the other thing is we sometimes do what we don't want them to do as parents. So let me just say it this way. So, you know, if you allow your child, I said this in church before, because some of the kids in church are not engaged, my own granddaughter, so I'm just gonna put her out there too. If she's watching, she's gonna get me later. But The reality is she's not engaged in church because she's on her device in worship, right? So we've got to figure out how do we separate them and give them downtime where they're not on their devices, where it's not, and we have to model that for them as well because we become accustomed to having our phones and looking at it and checking this and checking that. And it does affect who they are. And they do fall into that comparison danger where they start comparing themselves to other people. And you have to monitor what they're looking at. My niece, Gabby, and my granddaughter wanted me to take them to Ulta. Now, they were in second grade, I believe, at that time. And they said they need to go get some stuff for skincare. And I'm going, what are you talking about? What's wrong with your skin? You're in second grade. So I went to the store with them, and they picked out all of the stuff that they needed, and they needed this for this, and they needed that for this, they needed this for this. And I'm like, where are you guys learning this from? And it was social media, TikTok, right? So she went to my TikTok page last week, and I posted a video about my new book or whatever, and she put on the TikTok page, Papa, please let me take this over. This is ridiculous. So while we feel like they're not, they are engaged with it, we just have to find out how do we allow them to be engaged where they're learning the right stuff and that it's not affecting their mental health and it's not affecting relationships and it's not affecting the way we talk at the table for dinner and we have our phones. So I think that's important. As parents, it's important for us to start modeling what we are expecting of them as well.
I would also like to add to that because I think that's a great point. But like, if you notice, being on your phone a lot more, it kind of stops you from learning as much. And I mean that in the sense because I noticed with myself, I'm like, okay, like I'm on my phone way too much. Like I need to take some time to like actually breathe and like have a real life connection. And if you notice now when you go into these school systems and like these kids are having lunches, they want to be on their phones. They're glued to the phones literally. And they're not having any like physical interaction. That's how you learn. That's how you connect and grow with people. And like those people in person connections, they help you in the long run. So like when they're on their phone constantly, like I'm losing social battery, and then that's also creating me to be addicted to my phone and just craving to like scroll all the time. So like I noticed with myself that I didn't even know how to communicate at one point. Like it was hard for me to like, how do I keep the conversation going because I don't know? And it's because I'm on my phone. It's because I'm on TikTok. So in Instagram constantly. So just realizing that and understanding like how can we get them to like break away from their phones, and not to say like, social media is always going to be here, but how can we get them to actually like come out of that and like have those personal like interactions and learning how to effectively communicate with people as well. So
I think I can be supportive on this one. From the higher ed perspective, one of the things that I've seen as a trend through recent years is that some of the engagements students have in the K-12 environment begins to affect their competencies when they're seeking to pursue higher education. One of the hallmarks of social media is abbreviation. They don't use sound sentences, they abbreviate, they use acronyms, and when you're submitting to undergraduate studies or higher education, one of the competencies we look for is your ability to communicate it. At the School of Medicine, you have to sit for a formal interview for 4 hours. Before you're gained admission to it. And we get a chance to look at all the gaps, all of the character of the individual when they're completely disconnected, not just from their phones, but from their social identity, because we're not measuring who you appear to be online. We want to make sure that you're able to represent the Floyd School of Medicine once you enter the corridors. The way that we measure institutional successment is not just admissions, it's through retention and then graduation. So it's a whole wraparound piece that begins with it. But if a student struggles with the basic tenets of communication, that becomes problematic as they seek to go further. I was going to tie that into the mental health thing. Y'all know what I meant.
So
You get stressed about it. To me, or
if do you have any rules set up in the school system where children at some point can't use their phones?
can I go first and then y'all have that?
Cut off.
At certain, I've worked at 4 collegiate institutions, there are some schools, some colleges that disallow students to have laptops in lectures. There are some, and I've done this before, there are some professors that will allow technology in, but on the first day, y'all remember the blue books? I think all of us have been. They will have students begin their first writing assignment with the blue books in manuscript to gauge their literacy, their competency in literacy, and then give follow assignments. I know that we're going to get to it at some point, but the reason that they do that is because AI is present. A lot of what we see is artificially, introduced. We're preparing for the term. We're now I hate to put this out there because students might catch it, but we're putting white prompts into our assignments. Yeah, you've seen that, to catch students. Well, not to penalize them, but to let them know that in order to successfully advance, they've got to have these competencies. So the first line, some instructors will not allow, phones to be present. Some are more hardline and disallow laptops.
Yeah, I'll add, starting January 1st, 2025, state legislation eliminated the use of cell phones by students in classrooms. Yeah, and so the law is as good as the people who oversee. And so, the school staff is a major factor in how that is monitored and supervised. I could tell you at my last school that I led for 3 years, that was always the rule. And we held fast to it, and so we didn't have too many issues. And it's just the procedures that school have in place to supervise it. I know in a large high school it becomes probably a little bit more challenging, but the law is the law, the rule is the rule. So
It is a rule, and I can say this here because I want Ms. Wright to hear it, because she gonna get elected so she can change how they roll out stuff in the future. So because it wasn't rolled out the right way. People who were never in the classroom, people who were never in the schools, people who had no idea how that was going to work, just sent it to us. I think they got it from Virginia somewhere. I looked it up. They kind of copy and pasted it and sent it to us. So here, I think that might have been my first year as an AAA, and me and Dr. Thomas and the rest of our staff trying to figure out how we're going to do this. Because it's a mandate. We got to do it. They're going to take our funding, but now they don't tell you what to do.
And Charlie, it was rolled out in the middle of the school year. So if you're going to start a new policy, it needs to start August 1, not in January. And that was very difficult. I'm just be honest, what the law says is from bell to bell. So while we're using in the classroom, technically you don't supposed to have the cell phone between classes, technically not during lunch. And as you can imagine, the anxiety that comes with not being able to pick up your phone. But now teachers are now, to some degree, have to now focus on put your phone away. And of course, that takes away from the high level of instruction that teachers are supposed to be providing. So now it's just one more thing that schools are responsible for doing.
And the easier for us to get the students to follow those rules were the students whose parents had rules set in place at home. So those parents that I had a relationship with, that I had their numbers on my work cell phone, they'd be like, I'm not giving up my phone. Oh, so you want me to call your mama so she can have to leave her job? Okay, here you can have it. Because they knew that my mom or my daddy or somebody was coming and something was going to get done. But like I said, it's been a shift in that. And this new generation, that's another question. Why do you think some in this generation have such a problem with rules? Case in point is what's going on at Tuskegee. And I made a post on my Facebook page. I didn't have a problem with that because that's part of the dress code in high school. And so I don't see nothing wrong with that. And a friend of mine came on and was arguing, and I said, nah, first of all, don't come on my page with all that. That was, they might even be watching this, I don't care. Respectability politics. I mean, we could always coming up with new words and stuff. Like I said in my response, if you don't want to follow the rules, go to another school. Nobody's making you go there. It's such an issue for just to take off your bonnet or take off your do-rag. And like, you didn't never go to college. Yeah, I went to college, but I would never walk out the door like that because that lady right there, somebody called and tell her all the way from Clemson that I had a do-rag on my head, it was going to be trouble.
Well, I'm sorry that you went to Clemson. Number two, you must have been in our orientation at the School of Medicine this week. We have as a part of their first week, we call them the N1s, the M2s, the first and second year medical students, that before they hit the classroom, we lay out the expectations of professional development. And a portion of that, we talk about professional dress. Now, I was HBCU trained. I know that we've got a Morgan, we've got, where you went to school? Norfolk State or something like that. I went to FAMU on the highest of 7 hills in the city of Tallahassee. But down there, every Thursday at the School of Business and Industry, we had what was called FAMU Forum. This is in the late 90s, where we were mandated to be suited from top to toe, even if both of my ears are pierced, and I'm 45, and I don't wear them anymore because of my time at FAMU. Because we were trained that in order to excel professionally, particularly as men and women of color, our image speaks more than our competencies to as our first introduction. So when they come to the School of Medicine, we lay out the ground rules, and we tell them, not only are you not going to get on the campus, you in a church, you certainly ain't getting in the classroom, because if you go into the clerkships, what we call into the hospitals, you're a reflection of the institution. So your personal proclivities are not important. I say that respectfully. They don't matter to us. You come to our standard, we don't acquiesce to yours.
I think that's really important, and I think we model that as leaders in our buildings. One of the first evaluations I got as a principal, the superintendent wrote in this evaluation, "Don't appear to be on a pedestal." I have it to this day. I have it still in my house. And I've questioned myself several times about, why would you even say that? You know, what was it about me that made you think I was on a pedestal? Because I was professional, because I dressed professionally, because I wore a suit and tie every day to make sure that my students understood what it meant to be a professional. So I don't apologize for that, because I think students look up to us to model for them. And so we have to make sure that we do that. If we can, you know, when I was in college, we dressed up and went to class. Anybody remember that? I mean, you know, when I would visit, they would be dressed up, you know. So I think it's important for us to make sure that if we're expecting people to go into the workforce, be professionals and dress professionally, we have to hold them to a standard. We have to hold them to a standard. I think it's gotten better over time. I don't know if they're still sagging anymore. Are they still sagging? Okay. So, you know, I don't think it's as bad as it used to be. But, you know, when I was a principal, that was the issue, you know, sagging, you know, trying to get them to pull them up, you know, that kind of stuff. But I think it's important to have, and I agree with someone who said, you know, if you don't want to follow the rules, then you find somewhere else to go.
Sorry, I'll hop back in. I apologize. First of all, I was joking about the schools. I love to see black people educated. Norfolk State's great school, so is Clemson. My daughter went to Clemson. The part B to that is that even in professional communications, we were teaching them just the respect for how to communicate professionally as a part of the professional development training. And there are a few of us here. This is a touch point in certain communities for those that have terminal degrees. And one of my colleagues said to one of the students that emailed him, he was like, listen, you pay attention to how you address people in certain professional settings. His name was, his name is Dr. Vaughn. He's a cardiologist. And he was like, my name is not Mr. In professional communications. He was like, for some, that actually matters. And he was like, we're going to be colleagues in a couple years, but right now, I'm your instructor. Give deference professionally to my academic credentials. So in that regard, just those touch points, whether they become items of contention or not, are literally up to the people that you engage with, but have the students having a working understanding of that. It matters in the classrooms.
Okay, another question. I'm in and out of a lot of schools, and some of the teachers look worse than the kids. You can't tell the children from the teachers if they commingle with them. So when are you all going to make a dress code for all teachers? When I was in middle and high school, I wanted to be a teacher because they were so sharply dressed, and all the kids thought they were rich because they looked so good every day. But some of these schools you go in now, the way the teacher look tells me it has a reflection on the children in the classroom, and until they change their appearance, the children dress ain't gonna get no better. And that's good English. What are you gonna do to address the appearance of the teachers? The kids are just lost because their parents, a lot of the parents don't really care. And they wear, the kids wear, what you call them things, the bonnets, the do-rag bonnets or whatever they are. And I just think children shouldn't even be allowed in the door if they coming in there with the bedroom shoes on, with pajamas on, and those big bonnets on their heads. It's ridiculous. They're going to school, not to bed. and so I'm just wondering at what level will the school system do something about teachers' dress? And I'm telling you, it does have an effect on the children. If the teachers look like the kids coming in there, all the knees torn out of the pants or whatever, that shouldn't be. As a teacher, you're supposed to be the example. So, said it. Rules need to be made for that.
So I'm gonna try to answer this as politically correct as possible.
It's all right.
It's a catch-22.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why I say that, there's a shortage in teachers. And because of the shortage in teachers, teachers also feel they can go anywhere they want to, go teach anywhere they want to, because you need me, I don't need you. And that's the mentality now. And so a teacher can leave one school and go to another school just like that because it's a shortage. So how I come to school, what battle are you gonna wanna fight? All right, are you gonna fight that I'm a body in this building, I'm educating the children, or you want me to go home and change my clothes? Because if I go home and change my clothes, I'm not coming back. And then so now you don't have a sub to carry the class. So now who's gonna have the 30-something kids within the class or 20-something kids in the classroom? And this is my 21st year in education. So I've been a classroom teacher for several years, taught elementary, adult ed, and whatnot. So I see both sides of it. Myself, because I had a mom and dad who instilled in me, like, I didn't own my first pair of sweatpants until college. And that was because my mom and dad didn't believe in sweatpants and casual. I mean, they weren't religious folks like that, but it was just the way we dressed. And so sweatpants weren't like a thing we wore out the house. So my first pair were like in college, and I came home with these sweatpants that had like Spelman on the backside of them. And my parents were like, what are you doing? What are you wearing? I remember the first time I went to church without stockings on in college. And it was, we gotta, right. But it was one of those things that it was so instilled in me. And I was like, well, you don't have to go to church with stockings. My dress is long enough. You know, it comes a little below my knee. I mean, they were a little upset because it went at my calf. But you get what I'm saying? But it was because that's how they taught me. So I tried to rebel a little bit by like, at least I don't have to have the hot stockings on in the summertime. But it goes back to, what are your parents instilling in you? And as much as we try to control this narrative or what's happening, it's very difficult to do so. And we have this new generation that says, well, that's how it used to be. You can accept us this way, and we still have the smarts, and we still are able to perform. And while we know that's true, we also know that it's now playing a role in how students perceive us. Certain teachers take certain students more serious because of, like, I was always known as the teacher that was strict, loving. My brother calls me Joe Clark. And the reason why was because every time he would call me after work, I was walking a student home. I worked at Hyatt Park off of North Main, and I would walk to the Manor. Had no problem. In my short little heels, walking, suit and all. And people were like, are you afraid? I said, for what? And it was parents where I could reach, like when I was at another school, I had a principal to come to my class and say, hey, Ms. Williams, I've been trying to get in touch with this parent for the younger student. Can you call the parent? I was like, don't do that to me. And it was because he knew that if I called, the parent would answer the phone. And as soon as I called, I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't normally do this, but such and such wants to talk to you. And then they were like, oh. And I was like, just listen to what they have to say. And I gave over my cell phone for that parent to, be spoken to with the principal. But it goes back to say I think it's how I carried myself within the classroom, the expectations that students had of me. There were some parents who at first did not agree with my expectations until they saw that at the end it worked and their child became a better person. I've been cursed out over the phone with parents, and I just, politely hang up. And then I call back, you finished, and then we'll have a conversation. But those same parents have come to me years later when I've taught another student and said, I apologize for this behavior. Thank you for walking my child home and you having a conversation with me. Thank you for sitting at my kitchen table on a Sunday. I even took my son's father with me to go sit at parents' kitchen tables on Sundays so that they knew how much I care for their child, how much important it was. And so when we talk about like dress and we talk about getting back to like teachers and how they present themselves, it's more so now with the mentality of you need me more than I need you. So how I come to work is minimal compared to what I really need to be doing. And that's just being honest. Do I agree with it? The answer is no. But do I want a body here, somebody educating, or do I want 5 classrooms empty because you couldn't find out what to wear today?
I think, though, as a school leader, you set the expectation for that building. And I understand that we are at the place where we feel like we got to hold on to people. But I just retired after 36 years on Friday. And I was assistant superintendent of human resources, thank you, in Chester County School District. But I will tell you this, that you set the tone for everything. As a building leader, you set the tone. And there will be people who will leave your building. But if you want to create a culture of excellence, you have to have a standard. They have to know it. And when people leave, because that'll happen. Brandon, get ready. First year LR, I'm sure there are going to be people that are probably going to leave at some point. But as a former principal, this is not your first rodeo. So it takes at least 3 years to get a faculty and staff where you need them to be. And the people in that building who can't handle your level of excellence will leave. And what you have left are the people who believe in the students that you serve, believe in the vision and mission that you created for that school, and you will be able to take that school to another level of success because they know if you accept mediocre, that's what they're going to give you. So you have to make sure that you set the tone, create the culture, because people don't leave buildings, they leave leaders.
Yeah, I would say that I agree with Bishop and Miss Williams for sure. And so, for me, everything is just about timing, right? There's a time for everything. And so, as he stated, I've been a principal this is my third school leading at this point in my career. And so I've learned over time that, nothing is done overnight, right? And so I'm not going to come into a new school who has done things however they've done it for a century. Lower Richland High School is going into its second century of excellence now. And so I'm not going to go in now and change the dress code immediately, because that's immediately tied to new principal change, right? And so that may drive some people out, and some people may resent me immediately. And so it's important to, understand the timing of when you make certain changes, and so gradual steps, And so for me, it's making sure staff is not presented like the students. We're not wearing no holy jeans. You may be able to wear jeans, because, I'm kind of okay with jeans. You need to present yourself in a professional way. We need to be able to tell who the adults in the building are. Front office staff and administrative staff, jeans are not an option for front office staff and administrative staff, now. And so that's the standard. We also have to realize that these types of decisions are tied to our continuous improvement efforts as well as schools. And so that's why what Ms. Williams said becomes increasingly important. And so we're all measured by our school report card. And as a part of the school report card, we look at climate. And so that is a small piece, but it's really a very large piece, because I believe schools live and die on school climate. And so how do your students feel about your school? Do they feel safe at school? How do they feel about the learning environment at your school? And they ask staff those same questions as well. And so it's important that staff appreciate the climate that you are creating. For instance, Dr. Thomas, Richland Northeast High School is a school where joy resides. That's a part of their culture and their climate at Richland Northeast High School. And so by saying that, what the expectation is for how he wants his staff to experience joy when they come into the building every single day. And so we do have to be mindful of those decisions while still holding everybody to a standard, of excellence as well. So I think it's a place for both what Bishop and Ms. Williams stated.
When Charlie first put online about the whole Tuskegee thing, I'm like, why are we having this conversation? Like, why? The truth of the matter is you need to dress professionally. And Tuskegee is a fine institution. And I'm kind of like, if you don't want to follow the dress code, unenroll. Because the truth of the matter is, why is this a conversation? The truth of the matter is, we're preparing students for the world outside of college and outside of high school. And the truth of the matter is, no one is going to pay you well and you to have a bonnet on. But unfortunately, the conversation has been really rich on social media, and I've been kind of jumping in, but it's sad that we even have to have conversation about why a bonnet isn't appropriate for a college campus. It's just a shame. I'm like, where have we gone? So it's unfortunate, but in Richland School District 2, there are policies that surrounds do-rags and bonnets, and unfortunately, sometimes we fight that battle, but when mom comes to school, to the parent meeting, then unfortunately, they're just following the pattern of what they've always seen, and that's really unfortunate. So while schools and school districts have to make rules, where it starts off is from the home. That's where the standard, because if the standard is set at the home, then it really won't be an issue at the college campus or in any school building. But unfortunately, those are the battles we have to fight.
Next question, we want to keep moving. What challenges are educators facing that many people don't see? Because a lot of times on social media, you'll see people talking about what's wrong with the schools, or they'll be like, my child teacher did this school did that. But a lot of times people don't know what educators, people inside the buildings are facing. Anybody want to talk about that?
Well, I've been in education over 20 years. This would have been my 23rd year of teaching, but I resigned from Dorchester 4 to run for this position. But after getting out of the classroom, because I was in the classroom the majority, even as a leader, I still had to teach a class. So I was school coordinator, and I also taught at AVIC class. But after getting out of the classroom, it's like I got off of a hamster wheel. Because as a teacher, I was constantly going, even during the summertime. So I'm constantly planning, grading papers, and I think back, My kids went to the same school. Well, I'm a military wife too, so there were some schools where we were stationed where my kids went to school with me, and they'd have to stay after long hours as, I wrapped up things. But I just feel like as a teacher, you're always doing something. And I know some set boundaries, but I'm like that old school generation of teachers where we just do it. We just keep doing, no matter what it is, because we strive for that perfection. Now, as I've become older, I've learned to set boundaries. But as a new teacher, it's constant. So I think that's something that people don't really understand. Like, being a teacher, they say you get your summers off. No, some teachers still working. Yep, summer school and yep, all of it. You hear, it's constant.
Can I be honest? We have some educators who are afraid of students. And we don't want to say it because we want to paint this picture that teachers are in charge. And they are in charge, but unfortunately, many teachers haven't gone through what we would consider to be a traditional route. So when we're talking about how to discipline and how to manage behavior, some students don't have that. And some teachers are kind of like, is it worth the battle? Is it worth the fight? And that's really unfortunate because the only thing I grew up in Orangeburg, and the only thing the teacher really had to do is tell me, I'm going to call your mom. That immediately changed my behavior. But unfortunately, some teachers aren't equipped with the skills to deal with the behavior. And so sometimes the battle is not worth fighting for some people. But the truth of the matter is, there has never been a classroom that I've been in that I was afraid of students, because this was Mr. Thomas's world, and we're going to have to live within this world, and you're going to do as I say, and I'm going to teach and you're going to learn. But unfortunately, some teachers don't have that wickedness or that about themselves. So sometimes they'll see the students on the phone, but they're not going to address it because they don't want to deal with the fallout from the student. Neither do they want to have a fallout with the parent who's going to come to the school upset because you've taken their child's phone? So we have to begin to train our teachers how to deal with these behaviors, because unfortunately, teachers go to college and learn content and learn pedagogy. There are very few programs that offer classroom management classes. So unfortunately, these are things that teachers have to learn as they go. But we have some kids who are very volatile, and some teachers was like, it's not even worth it. So those are battles or challenges that educators face that are oftentimes not seen.
I was afraid, but they never knew it. I would say it all the time. When I was the assistant principal at Lower Richmond, we would have these assemblies and all these things, and I would say, if they ever turned on us, we'd be done. You know what I'm saying? All of them turn on us, we're done. But they would never, they could never see the fear. You can't let them see that fear. You can't allow them to believe that they have control over you. And I think one of the things I think that's challenging also is parents who feel like educators have the time to pick on their children. Right. When there's a discipline issue, y'all always messing with him. Why y'all messing with him? Why you wrote him? Why, I, as an administrator when I was one, I didn't have time to find Johnny and say, let me get Johnny in trouble today. I think if parents understand that we want what's best for their children, and we're not there to kick them out. That's not our objective. We want them to remain because we know that they're important when it comes to our academic success. So I think the challenge of getting parents to be supportive and be proactive. Laura Richardson just had parent engagement sessions with Dr. Ross, and the first night, it wasn't that many people there, right? But if he did something that they were angry about, they would have filled that entire arena. Well, not arena, auditorium. They would have filled the auditorium. Being proactive, though, showing up before there are issues is what I think is what really is important to, I think, that people don't see. We need the support before the trouble comes.
I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm going to talk about them relatively quickly because you weren't fast enough, brother. And so I think a lot of teachers have the success script of be perfect, be smart. And that leads to what Ms. Wright was talking about as well. So it leads to, teachers burning out. And so, for me, my core belief is that we have to have shut-off times. And that's what I always echo to my administrative team and my administrative staff, my staff overall. If I text my admin team after 4 o'clock and we're out of the building, the expectation is not for them to respond to me. It is a question that we can talk about tomorrow, right? Because my expectation is that we grind for the school. We're going to grind for Lower Richland High School when we are there from 7:30 to 4 o'clock. We're going to grind for the kids, right? But when you go home, you have a family that you have to grind for as well. And if you spend all your time and all your emotional energy and capacity on Lower Richland High School, even when you get home, you have nothing left for anybody else. And that doesn't produce healthy adults. And so Ms. Wright and Ms. Williams talk about social emotional wellness. That's important for adults as well, right? So we have to be concerned with our adult well-being. And so I say all the time that Lower Richland High School is student-centered, but we're adult committed as well. We have to be committed to our adults, because if we're not, guess what? We don't have anybody to be student-centered, right? And so we have to take care of the adults as well. I will also say that there is, Pastor Butler talked about this as well, there's a black male educator dilemma, right? You're a black male educator and you come into the school, they put everything, they want to put everything on you. All the black male students, all the behavior challenges, the sports, all those things, they feel like you are tough enough to carry those things. And as black men, oftentimes we say yes. First year teacher. I have no pre-service education background, but you ask me to do it, okay, I got it, I'm gonna do it, right? And then it leads to burnout, and then it leads to them not being fully prepared to be the absolute best teacher that they can be as well, and that's immensely important. And then last thing I'll say is, what challenges are educators facing that many people don't see? I think a lot of it revolves around people making decisions for educators and not with educators. And so I tell my people all the time, I didn't get to where I am because I can't make decisions. I can absolutely make a decision. Well, I have to make a decision when we can make a decision, right? And so I'm not going to make a decision for you. I'm going to make a decision with you. And I think the more that we can bring educators into the decision-making process and give them a voice and allow them to realize that their voices are heard, the better schools and the better people that we have, working in our schools.
And it's interesting that you bring that up. SC Teacher did a survey for administrators as well. And teachers, and that was one of the issues for administrators as well, is shared governance and making sure that people have voice and that their voice is heard in decision-making throughout the school. So that is something that I think we should consider, that we continue to look at as well, involving the staff in decision-making.
Yeah. I hate to be knocking on a specific door, but I kind of am. The competency piece is what I see again at the collegiate level. And I remember an occasion where I was teaching with the Jack Welch School of Management. That's a business school, grad schools, MBA students. And there was a student there submitting her final assignment. I have a practice that, to answer the question, is that many times one of the challenges of educators is that we don't know what we're getting when we see the students walking in the classroom, and you just don't know until you know. Turning in a final assignment that was written, it was like a 5-page paper, and this student turned in an assignment that was about a paragraph and a half and largely unintelligible. And me being, the social instructor that I am, I was like, why'd you turn in your nose? I was like, quit playing with me. Like, give me my assignment. I'm trying to get the semester in. And she was like, no, this is it. And I was like, what in the ham sandwich? I can't even make sense of this. What are you trying to say? Read it to me as you hear it in your head. And having that touch point with my students, because I had always had a practice of not grading an assignment until it met my standards. And it takes up a lot of time. This student told me, she was probably in her late 30s, early 40s. She was like, Capers, I don't read and write well. And I was like, how are you on the precipice of receiving a master's degree? Like, has no one had this conversation with you? And it comes to a point where you'll see some of the burnout, some of the fatigue, some of the administrative burden of those touch points with with students, because it impacts the instructors. We call them T&P files, our tenure and promotion files, are indirectly but directly related to student performance. I know this firsthand. So if students feel that you're pressing them when the course evaluations come at the end of the term, it's like, I don't like capers. And then when time comes for me to get additional assignments or a review, I get penalized for the work that I'm not responsible for. I teach largely elective classes. I mean, you don't need my stuff to graduate. You get in there to boost your GPA. But it's one of the struggles that I've seen in 15 years in higher education.
I just want to go real quick because since he touched on it, but I had it on my notes, is that we don't talk about teachers being properly prepared. So when we talk about whatever program they went through education, things like that. So I went to Spelman College, education major. In getting my education, what I've learned is that when I talk to other teachers, I'm like, you didn't do that in undergrad? We had a multicultural class. We were doing this, we were doing that. I don't understand what program you went to that didn't even give you the basic. And I'm be honest, like when I took my reading course, I was like, why are we learning phonics in here? Why are we learning this? Why are we learning that? And all that kind of stuff. I thought it was going to be more strategies and whatever it was about, but I appreciated that because when I got into the classroom and I saw where I could see the gaps that students were having. But what prepared me was my college. And so now I see the state is going back to letters, training all teachers with this whole science of reading, when in undergrad, I had this 20-something years ago. And so again, and I was a teacher advisor at a college in the area, and so some of the basic stuff when I worked with student teachers, they didn't have the foundation. They did not have the foundation that could give them the strength to be able to endure as they got into the classrooms. And I think that's what we also need to go back is we need to look at our colleges, not in the area, but just in general, about how are we preparing teachers? How are we preparing them to be successful? Not just, oh, here's a curriculum, this is what you do, but like someone said earlier, the classroom management piece. Not only classroom management, but they teach you in college how to teach the student that is on grade level, but they don't teach you the student that is falling behind or the student that is accelerated and gifted. But there's certain programs that teach that and other colleges don't. So when we talk about the challenges educators are facing, it's not being prepared for the workforce when they actually are getting into the classroom.
Shelley's being incredibly diplomatic in her responses. I ain't on school board. I could say it how I feel it. Listen, the bar over the last 20 years is almost scraping the earth at this point, where the expectations that were, and I hate to sound like, an elder in the room, but it comes to a point where standards for what was acceptable academically, that day is just about gone. So what we're seeing, not just in the level of professionalism and the professional educators that we're seeing, but also in the post K-12 experience in higher ed, is kind of a result of that. I just came through my first iteration of COVID kids in college. They're in the workforce. They're in the workforce now. God bless all of you. Right, we have sweatpants at work. You'll find these touch points being reflective of softened standards, even as it relates to little things like phonics and tone, tenor, and diction in conversation. All of those things have been completely relaxed, even as it relates to, I'll say it because y'all still in the act of, in grading. Incredibly generous in the way that we grade. even in college courses. And we have matriculated students that probably needed a little bit more time, but we didn't have the additional time to give them because the burden of our responsibility is so great. So it's a cyclical argument, and it's one that might continue for a while until it's figured out.
All right, I'm gonna get you. But I have one question. Somebody's watching. They sent they said, how much weight should a parent give the school report cards when choosing schools for their kids? I want a couple, Ms. Wright, I want you, because you, like I said, you're gonna win. But who's measuring how effective those school report cards are? Like, because I know principals, y'all have these conversations. We feel like it's like they're moving the goalposts every time. Like, one thing big for us was CCR, and one thing I keep every time I talk about it. How can a kid that's accepted to college, that got a college acceptance letter, that doesn't count for them CCR being, so it's all these other areas, but if I got an acceptance letter to USC or Clemson or any school, that's not, the state won't take that as them being CCR. You got to go through all these other routes that a lot of kids are not interested in. So it makes it harder. Then they give you these YOTG goals, and something else changes. Then you think you got a better grade. Then next year it comes something. And I think then parents look at it, and like Dr. Thomas was promoting to us at Northeast, we have to tell our own story. Because schools have a lot of great things going on, but if all the parents are seeing you're below average on their report card, they're going to think everything is bad. So can we answer that? How should parents look at that when they're choosing schools, their kids' report cards?
Well, can I shout out Richland One? Because I believe Richland One, currently, none of their schools are unsatisfactory for the first time. So congratulations to Richland One on that. That's my, I'm sorry, Richland Two people, but I live in Richland Two, but it was Richland One, right? But that's exciting. I think that's really exciting, and I think when people select where they want to go, I think it is important. I think we've figured out as principals how to work the game. Right? If you learn how to work the numbers, you let the data work for you, you figured out how to do that, then you can get success. But you have to have a staff that's committed to creating professional learning communities that we know work for school success, that some people rebel against because they don't want to be held accountable as individual teachers. Sometimes you have teachers who just want to be in there for a paycheck and not for the success of the school or the students. So it's important that when you create a professional learning community, that you set the standard for what you believe is possible at your school. Because it can happen. It happened at Lower Richland, right? Recently. So, those things can happen. It can change, but you got to have the right leadership and the right belief and the support, and then people will want to be at your school.
Well, no, you're good. Really quickly, because you were talking about working the game. So with the school report card, there are different elements that make up the grade. It's not just one thing that a school is graded on. There are different things, like you talked about climate, and you talked about the survey that the teachers and the students and the parents have to take at the end of the year to get that data to, come up with the score for the schools. So when he's saying work the game, that means choosing like these different elements. How are you going to, for example, with academic achievement, what interventions are you going to put in place to help raise test scores? Because when those test scores improve, your score goes up. For climate, how are we going to maybe have breakfast for the teachers or once a month, something to make the teachers feel that sense of belonging, make the students have that sense of belonging, and the parents feel like they have a great relationship with the school. Doing these things will help increase your score. So that's what he means, working the game.
So this is one of the things that I kind of differ on to a certain degree. And one of the reasons because I've seen, it depends on, like you said, you can work the game, meaning I might have students that can't even read the survey, but they have to take the survey. So now it's like, okay, we're going to have to take this survey together. We're going to read it together. I'm not persuading you on your answers, but then you have certain schools who have teachers It was like, okay, they told you need to take this survey. Here's the survey, take it. But the kids didn't even know how they were answering because they didn't understand what the survey said. So it kind of skewed the numbers. But when you're talking about like academic achievement, there's always a moving target. And so like now there are designations to schools, ATSI, CSI, TSI, all the kind of, second cycle, whatever it might be. And those things play a role in it, but a school can be performing greatly academically, but what they didn't realize that a designation of a CSI school is because of the subpopulation. And the subpopulation might be special education. The subpopulation might be I'm a majority white school, but I have a couple of African Americans, and now even Hispanic students who are not performing to level. Or it might be the opposite. I'm a predominantly African American school, and my African American students are performing, but my white students are not performing. And it's all those things that people don't see, and you are above the 10%, but you're still the lowest of the 10, but you're still average. And they don't see that, but all they see is that you have a designation at your school. And so when you talk about this school report card, I say, yes, pay attention to it, but dig a little deeper into the test scores. Yeah. Because you see that, 50% of the kids were able to pass SC Ready, Excel, do great, but now the whole state is at 50%. I'm just making it up. Right. And so who's the bottom of this 50%? Even though everybody is here, but who's the 10% at this bottom, but everybody is still meeting the need. So it's always going to be a moving target. And so as much as you try to do well as a school, as a district, you still might fall in that lower number because everybody's doing great, but you just happen to be the bottom of the greatness. And I don't think people see that and they don't understand. So when you see numbers, you got to understand what the total picture is and dig a little deeper. A lot of people sometimes criticize like, well, why did you send your child to this school? This is what this school designation is. This is what it is. But one thing I always say is that I dig deeper and I look at the climate. I look at what the school can offer my child and how well my child can fit into the school. Not just all about the name of the school. And so I think that's what we have to do as parents is do our research on schools. Look at the teachers. Are the teachers going to fit with my child's personality? I know my child needs this type of learning environment. Does this school provide it? Even though this might be the top school in the district, that might not be for my child because that's not what my child needs. He needs a more caring and nurturing environment. So we have to think about what our children need individually because your child A might need child B school and your child B might need child A school. And they might not go to the same school, but you have to do your research and what works for your children and their personalities and their learning styles.
I want to add
Dre,
one
you
thing.
can come
I
up.
promise I won't say anything else. I do want to say that as our future superintendent, that one of the things that happens is when you are an unsat school and you are ATSI and CSI, you get funding. And you use those funds to help improve your academic success of your students and your report card. When you improve, you lose the funding. You can't do that anymore. So I think that's something that they should look at, those things that how do we make sure the funding remains so that we can continue having the gains that we have made.
Brother Dre gonna ask a question, but before I want to shout out Richland Northeast because we got off that ATSI in 1 year. Most people take 3 years, and like you said, Ms. Williams, a lot of those scores, like all students, when you think about EOC scores, all students have to take EOC classes, even if they're sped. So that you can have all this, and then you got those. Why? They're not even on grade level. Why is that a requirement for them to take? That makes no sense. But because it's mandated, we have to do it. And so a lot of schools have magnet. We ain't gonna tell too much. People have a lot of magnet students. And so they're able to raise their scores because they have large magnet populations. But then everybody else is at one level. So you might think, well, they just got a high population and they got such great. No, you got a segment of students, but everybody else is kind of like, I had one person ask me about the three different high schools. I said, it depends on what your child wants. What is your child interested in? Because all of those schools are good schools. You just got to go make sure that it works best for you. And like I said, ask the kids about the school. Because our kids love our school. Whatever you say in the community might be different from what our kids dealing with because the kids are in the school. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for this forum and thank you for the panelists. It's just great. I didn't really know why I came. I just said I'm supposed to be here. I have a question, but it goes back to probably what you were saying, Dr. Capers. With South Carolina schools being amongst the lowest overall in the nation, and with information translating almost every 5 years or progressing almost every 5 years, what do we do to make sure that the teachers, there's no research, is there a research or anything that helps them, in every profession we have a continual education process. What do we do to make sure that our teachers are still coming in on task and then advancing as they garner tenure? That's a question I wanted to pose.
We have how many certain amount of hours you have to have. And so what's happening is you have PDs built in 120 that you can do. And you're taking classes that come in. So yeah, every 5 years. Yeah. So that's part of it, but it's like a broad band of what you can use to count for that.
But our clients are changing as well.
Yeah.
Students.
Yeah.
And if we don't have cultural competencies, we could be teaching theory, but not the practicality of who we're dealing with.
I think one thing, I'll let y'all say this, but I know every year it was something new was coming. It was a new fad, something. The district was buying the books to this, and you're going to do this, and then next year it's something else, and then it's so once you learn something, they change it to something else. So I don't know how we can get around that.
So just to answer your question real quick, there's a lot of professional development given to teachers, sometimes weekly. There are PLCs that happen within schools, PLOs that happen maybe at the beginning of the week on Mondays on certain topics that arise, things like that. And as districts see the need for that topic or that issue, there are coaches that are in schools. You have literacy coaches that are in schools. You have math coaches that are in schools. And so they're there to help with that professional development and that continuing education of teachers in that process. And so those literacy coaches and those math coaches constantly go to State Department workshops and meetings, and we are responsible for bringing it back to the district, and we are also responsible for bringing it back to our school levels to help our teachers be able to digest and understand, and to not just give it to them, but to work alongside teachers. So if it causes because I'm also an instructional coach in another district. So what I have to do is I have to work alongside teachers, and I model lessons for them. We do book studies, we do just all types of professional development to help them and whatever. And it's not, again, similar to what Dr. Ross said. It's not me telling them what they need. It's them telling me what they need. So I always get their input because I can tell you what you need, but you're not going to have a buy in it. So if you tell me what you need help in, or and not a principal telling me that I need to go into this school and help out, it's more like the teacher telling me, then we can work alongside each other, and I learn from the teacher and the teacher learns from me as well. So even though I'm not directly in the classroom, it helps me as well because I still have a hand working with students, and I still have a hand working with teachers. So that professional development is constant. And what we don't want to do is overwhelm teachers because they also have so much. So again, that's why they have to have a buy-in to, I would like for you to come in and help and coach me. Not as we're penalizing you. It's more so to help you stay on track.
Deacon Goodson, your question, then I'll come to you.
So I used to be a director of education at a trade school here in the city. I love the trades. We oversaw 2 medical programs, the medical assisting, and I forgot what the other one was. Please forgive me, it's been a few years. But we also had a building maintenance repair, CDL, and HVAC program, where in 9 months you can take anybody from off the street, they can leave with an EPA 3 core. And I'll give you an example. I sat for the EPA just for giggles. The passing score was 16. I made 13 without studying it. And we had young men and women after 9 months going into careers that would pay them up to like $60,000 a year. I'm an advocate of it. The CDL program, 6 weeks. And at the time that I left, they were making about 47 cents a mile. I don't know why we are pushing students that might not be fit for the 4-year experience into the trades, but I am an advocate. I got a shameless plug.
Go ahead.
There are also programs that our communities don't know about at traditional universities that I'm aware of, and I want to help students that look like us get access to. At Clemson University, it's called the Emerging Scholars Program, where first-generation students whose parents might not have degrees, they can go to 4 years of undergrad and 2 years of a graduate program completely free of charge. Y'all didn't know that. At the University of South Carolina, it is called the Opportunity Scholars Program through the TRIO program. If the parents don't have degrees and they hit certain, if they fall under certain financial thresholds, those students get what's called the Gamecock Guarantee. If they're accepted into the program, the university will give them a $5,000 grant off top and reduce the price of their core classes to pennies on the dollar. And many of the graduates graduate debt-free. One more. For those high-achieving students, I'm trying to push my kids and my nephew into them. Kendall, you got to hear about this one. It's called the Bars SC program. Those high-achieving students that would get accepted into USC Honors College that want to pursue careers in medicine, 7-year program from high school diploma. You get accepted into the program, you pay no tuition. After year 3, you will graduate with your bachelor's degree. After year 7, you will have an MD, not sitting for the MCATs, and you will graduate with no debt. Ask me about it. 7 students in the program currently.
With the trade thing, and I think Ms. Williams will say, like, we need more people who want that back in the schools to come to the school board meeting. Reach out to your representatives and stuff. Tell them that we want that back in there. And so once that becomes a common thing now, they'll be like, okay, people want that, so maybe we need to put that back in the schools.
Right, so they have CTE. The problem with it is, as we well know, it's funding. Funding. And so we have to start from the top, from your state, and ask for the funds to be trickled down so that we can be able to afford it. Now, there is, in Richland 2, you have R2I2. In Richland 1, you have Hayward Career Center that offers that. You have the Fighter Fire program. You have certain at LR. You have culinary as well. There's some other programs that are offered. And one thing that I also love about it, shameless plug to LR, is because that was one of my schools that I had to work with, is that I loved how they were inclusive with students with disabilities in those programs like the CTE, those CAPE programs. Because it allowed for students who, again, like you said, might not be as successful in a general education curriculum course of studies, but they were able to get some certification in culinary or fighters and then say, hey, I can still have a job after I graduate. But one of the things that holds us up the most is funding. Like, we want to get a welding class in Richland too. But when we looked at the price and the equipment and the need for it, we always have to do what is like a needs assessment and what the area needs as well. And that's how it happens when the funding is trickled down. However, some of the needs do not match. So the wants and the needs are not matching. So a lot of community members want the welding. But what the area says is that it's not the need for us to have it, so we can't fund it. No, I know there's a need, but according to what the state says that need needs to be, and where the assessment is, once they do the assessment, it's totally different. Right. No, I wholeheartedly understand. Correct.
Because that's where most of our early entrepreneurs have to start through the trade system. Right. Now we're losing the whole game.
Correct.
So once they get you so far behind, we've already lost them out of the trade system.
So one of my solutions would be is we have to increase our community partners to be able to give us money so that we can have the money to be able to start those programs, and not just start it, but maintain it. And so even if they're, community members that could say, hey, I would love to donate my time, because again, it is all around funding. As you know, the budget was not approved originally. They just came back to try to approve the budget. Districts, they said we had to have a raise in salary for teacher salaries, 2.5% teacher raises. We want to honor that. Richland 2 decided, regardless if the budget is going to be approved or not, even if we have to tap into another fund, we will still honor those raises, even though legislators have not approved that yet. Our goal is to be able to still uphold what we say we're going to be able to do. But if we don't have the money, we cannot do certain things. And there have been significant cuts in public education. So that's why we have to really advocate around this whole policy with public education and funding. Because now you have vouchers that are going out to charter schools, to private schools, which is taking away the money from public education. And people say it's not, because the money is the money. But if I only have $100 and I have to split $100 between private school, public school, and charter school, I'm not going to get my whole 100. Charter and public is a choice. Public is our natural right that in our Constitution said we will educate and we will provide. Now, if you don't like the public education, you can choose to go to charter and you can choose to go to a private. I have nothing against those who choose that. But at least let the people who want this public education not be penalized for what's going on, and it's starting to take away and chisel at what the foundation of what we were founded on, to be able to provide and educate our students with the basic welding, culinary, whatever it might be, because that is what a lot of students found joy in. Like Dr. Ross said, he said earlier about we have to have that connection. Some kids stay because they have a connection now and they want to do something. They look forward to going to those classes. They will outperform in those classes than any other class. And so with that being said, we have to feed into that and we have to nurture that so that these kids could be successful.
I do want to touch on that because I do advocate for a lot of things within my community, and speaking to those legislators who actually have to make those decisions. So she mentioned community partners, and that plays a big role when they have those community meetings and they have those legislators and those officials in those buildings. Y'all need to be filling those seats, because when nobody shows up, they don't care, So, and then advocating for those things moving forward to those people, to those legislators, to those people who we elect in those seats and they're supposed to be representing us, also plays a big role as well. Just like we have a midterm coming up, everybody in this room should be, voting for people who care, people who care and who are showing up in these spaces and in these rooms. That's why it's so important just to make sure that you are, participating in that civic engagement making sure that you are being a citizen and doing your due diligence to this community as well by advocating for your children and things that are going on. Because the laws that they're passing now is not going to affect the older generation, those 70 and 80-year-olds that are in those seats. It's going to affect your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grands moving forward. So making sure that we can strengthen those partnerships between those legislators, those people in those high positions, to make sure that we get the things that we need for our community.
Well, I don't have a question. I know I'm not on the panel. Okay, but I wanted to respond real quickly to the first question I believe that was asked about, I forgot how it was worded, the kids' behavior. Prior, I was in 911 dispatch. So I dispatched for the city of Columbia for over 15 years. I went back to get my master's in clinical counseling and while being a dispatcher. And in the latter years of doing so, I noticed that the call volume escalated for kids committing suicide. The last call I took was of a 10-year-old in Blythewood that committed suicide. And the reason why I emphasize Blythewood is because that's the prominent side, of Columbia. So I quit my job to provide a solution because I understood that the kids was being pre-exposed to things before they were holistically prepared to do so. So I quit my job to start my organization, which is Rebirth Enterprise Youth Development Program. I also went inside the school district as a substitute teacher just to see what was going on, to see what they were providing the kids so I can offset what the kids were not being provided. And what I saw was that the emotional, so go back to the social emotional, because my program is a social emotional learning program. And what I saw was that the emotional components of the kids were not being addressed. And when the emotional components of the kids were not being addressed, the why wasn't being addressed, just the behavior. So I would see kids come in, whatever they were going through, it's kind of hard for them to excel in the classroom when they're dealing with these issues. And I would see them, for example, using the school system is the oldest system to me in the world. Nothing has changed. We use the same behavior issues to address these issues, even though we're dealing with a different generation. I'll give an example, ISS. I went and saw that the kids we were scared of going to ISS. These kids use ISS as an excuse to get out of class because they understand they can't read. So they would come in, for example, if I'm substituting math, they couldn't add. So, okay, I don't want to do it with math, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to misbehave and I'm going to go to ISS. So the old behavior issues are the things that were in the school system was no longer being utilized or as when we were in school. So I'm just saying that to say, so I started my organization, provided social emotional learning programs. I reached out to every school district in the state. Even when COVID came, I understood if we do not be proactive and have these kids address the emotional roller coaster, we're going to have the aftermath of what we have. Again, reached out to every school in the district. Hardly no one reached back. I even said, okay, I was taking this step farther. I became a vendor in all the school districts. One of my programs is a spoken word program where we teach emotional intelligence for the first 4 weeks. And in the next 4 weeks, we teach spoken word as a coping mechanism for the kids to learn how to express themselves, because these kids don't know how to express themselves. An extension of that program, my organization put on a free showcase. It'll be our 5th year at the Culver Center. Kids don't pay for anything. It's the purpose of giving them an outlet to express themselves and to be heard, because a lot of these kids do not feel heard. They have a lot of suppressed trauma that they're not given the opportunity to express. Again, reached out to about every school district. Hey, do you even got to pay for this? This is free. I'm sending it to the assistant principals. I'm sending it to the principals. So I'm hearing people say, and the parents say, hey, it's social emotional learning. But when you have programs like myself and other programs out there that's reaching out to the schools to say, hey, I have an outreach for you. Let's partner up. Let's provide something other than academic, because these kids cannot perform academically if they're not taking care of their emotions. If we're allowing them just to suppress it and think it's supposed to come in, they're hungry. They deal with all kind of trauma, especially when we talk about COVID. You know, the school systems is some of these kids' outlet of feeling loved, of getting fed, and then here we come with COVID, and that safe haven is being taken from them. But there was nothing put in place for when these kids, before these kids came back to school, or when they're coming back to school, how do we address this so we do not have the aftermath? So again, I'm saying, I understand, you know, I agree with everything that's been said on the panel, but again, just from someone on the outside looking in, who tried to partner with the schools to be an outside resource, is overlooked.
I want to take an opportunity to address that. I'm thinking as a principal, and so I had the opportunity to again lead now 3 schools, and so the number of just full transparency, number of emails we get from outside vendors is sometimes overwhelming, and we don't get a lot of times to really kind of be in the office and check those things. And so if I was a vendor. And I think the services that you provide, how you speak about them, are phenomenal and needed in the schools as well. And so my suggestion would be finding the key people at the district office who can vet the resource for the schools, right? And so I think about our learning support staff. I'm going to speak about Richland too, because that's where I did a lot of my time. And so I think about reaching out to, you know, Kelly Snipes, who's over all the school psychologists, or Tasha Morgan, who is over all the school counselors, and convening a meeting with learning support services. Now Mr. Timoni is I think he's going to be over some of that department. Is that right, Dr. Thomas? And so Mr. Timoni, the former current principal at Spring Valley, but he's transitioning into that role, and having to sit down with those people so that they can vet the resource for you, and then they can be the ones to be the mouthpiece for your organization to say, hey, you know, I met with Rebirth, phenomenal resources. I encourage you all, based on what I know about your schools, to be able to sit down, you know, with this individual and see how you can utilize this resource. And maybe the district may be able to support and provide some funding to the schools to help pay, because we have a budget that we, you know, have to operate within as well, and sometimes those funds are limited, and we try to use that for, you know, some instructional resources as well. And so that may be a way to do that. And I'm learning the system in Richland 1. I'm a product of Richland 1, but I'm new as an employee to the district. I know Shaq Durant just came from Spring Valley High School as the director of school counseling, and now he's overseeing all the school counselors in Richland 1. And so he may be a point of contact for you, so that he can help vet that resource, so that he can, you know, so that we know as principals, okay, this is coming from somebody at district level. We know the resource has been vetted, and it's not just an email that kind of gets deleted. Because I'll just be transparent. Sometimes that's what happens. When we're part of organizations like SCASA and things, we get hundreds of emails a week just from vendors saying, hey, this is what we provide for students who have discipline issues in your school. Hey, you need sub coverage. You know, this is what we provide. And sometimes it just gets overlooked that way. And so if you ever send email to me, I apologize. I'm sorry.
Well, let me say this, because, okay. I just want to address something you just said real quick. And this is something I guess the superintendent, when she becomes the superintendent, yes, she could, I've done that. And the question always is, go back to the principal. So I didn't take just not getting a response on the principal or the school level as a no, I'm going to stop, because I understand, again, what I was called in my purpose. So I'm going to fight for this. So I didn't just stop at the principal. Like I said, I sent it to the principal, the vice principal, the school counselor. I sent it to, more than just the principal, and just to say I went to the district as well. And the response is always, go back to the principal.
I'm going to say this, and then we're going to take the question. So now you got some principals that's up here. And so if you connect with us, I got great relationships with the middle school principals in Richland 2. Dr. Thomas is in the high school principal PLC. I'm in the high school principal PLC in Richland 1. And so if those are areas you want to get connected in, we have a conversation, and we can, you know, make sure that all the principals get access to the support and the services that you provide.
We're going to take one more question, and then we're going to give it's not Dr. Wright, is it? Not yet. We're going to give her a little bit, because I want her to give us kind of like a closing game plan of what we can do to help her. All right?
All right. Good evening, everybody. I do not have a question. I have a comment. Thank you all, first of all, for being here today and sharing your information. I'm Dr. Helene Cameron. I've only been here in Columbia a little over a year. My entire career has been in higher education. for the most part. In my most recent role, I was vice president of undergraduate medical education services at the American Association of Colleges of Osteopathic Medicine. That's big. What it meant was I managed the 24,000 applications every year of students who wanted to go to medical school, osteopathic medical school, for our 70 at the time osteopathic medical schools in the country. And the biggest thing that I have found throughout my career is that students do not advocate for themselves because they do not feel safe advocating for themselves. And if there's anything else that I can share here today is we have to find spaces in education where students feel comfortable asking questions, where they feel comfortable saying, I don't understand, so that they can do well in school. And so that's just a huge thing. And I've heard a lot of very important things here today. Ms. Gant, you advocated for yourself, I am sure, from kindergarten, pre-K, all the way to where you are right now.
All the way up.
Right, but every student doesn't feel that way, and so students need to be made to feel comfortable to advocate for themselves. It's just as simple as a teacher saying at the end of the class, if you did not understand, come see me. It's just that simple, because that advocacy for themselves is very, very important, because sometimes they don't have parents who can advocate for them. And parents who do not understand. And so we have to be partners with children and help them understand this is for you. So if you're not getting it and you're not understanding it, advocate for yourself, and it's okay to do so. Thank you.
Well, first I want to thank you, and the pastor and the church, for this opportunity, the community for coming out, and just thank you all for showing up. And thank you for this great discussion. This has been one of the best educational discussions that I've had on a forum, and so thank you guys for that. As far as how you can help me, first is volunteering. You can go to my website, right2026sc.com. You can sign up to volunteer. We're starting our listening sessions, which is similar to this, where I listen to what the community, like what you're describing, and CTE, all those things, because what you're saying is what I want to take with me to advocate for you, because that's the role of the superintendent, to be that advocate for the teachers, or the educators, the students, the community, the families. And so I need to know what's happening. So I need to hear your voices and not just presume, like you were saying, being told, telling the teachers what to do, but including all the voices in the conversation. That's my goal. And so signing up to volunteer, donations, and it could be a simple $10, $25. If you can go big, go big. The highest you can give is $3,500, so $3,500. And then spreading the word. One of the biggest things that's been helpful for me, because I've been campaigning for over 2 years, but people have been finding out about me because people tell their family or they tell their friends. So type in my website, right2026sc.com, and then text it to like 3 people. Hey, have you heard about Sylvia Wright? Because that's how it spreads. So again, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Can we give all of our panelists a hand? One thing we all can do is make sure that everybody we're connected to is registered to vote. And they vote. Yes, so make sure. We thank you all for coming out. I thank all of our panelists, and they might stick around a little bit if you got any other questions. We don't want to keep y'all here all night. Again, we have some school supplies out front if you need for any of your kids, provided by the church. Shameless plug, I wouldn't be, won't toot my own horn, but God has given me the ability to write also, and wrote a devotional. And so I'll bless all the panelists with one, but parents, if you know your kid's teacher, you don't know them coming up, get them this devotional. A saved educator is a safe educator. And it's only $10. You can get one outside. Also, I got a book called Relationship Matters. It's about building relationships, and that's one thing I pride myself on. I build relationships with my kids. I got one. They still texting me now, even students that I had 10 years ago. I'm still connected because those relationships matter. And also, I wrote another book called Mr. Butler Cares about how to teach your staff. If you want the climate to go up, you got to treat your staff right. And so, and I pray that when I leave this earth, everything I have, I leave empty because I'm pouring out. And so, you can get these books, bless somebody with them, because this will help. Not Dr. Sumter, but Bishop Sumter. He has a book also. He can talk about it real briefly. Want to give everybody a chance and connect with these people. And be on the lookout for Zanaya. She's going to do great things. She said she don't want to be the president. I asked her that a couple months ago, but I was able to teach her in 10th grade and 12th grade, and I knew something was different about her, and she's making me very proud.
And let's just give a round of applause to Pastor Butler for putting this panel together.
Absolutely. I enjoyed myself tonight. But I do have a book. It's called Dirt Road Destiny. And it chronicles my path from growing up on the dirt roads of Hopkins, South Carolina, and becoming an assistant superintendent and doing speaking engagements across the world. And it talks about several things about work-life balance, because there was a time in my life I didn't have any balance. It was all about work. I pastor, and I was in education, and I was consulting. And so that was a lot happening at one time. So I don't even know how to retire, because I'm telling you, it's been hard. Like I felt like I'm going through a divorce right now. Like just kind of going through the emotions. But I'm grateful for the 36 years that I have. So it's available on Barnes & Noble, Books, any Walmart, any place you want to go. Just do a Google search for Dirt Road Destiny by Wendell B. Sumter, and you can get it. I think it's a great read. Many people that have read it have been great responding and leaving reviews about the book. So, and I do have some copies available with me if you'd like a copy as well.
I got a shameless plug too. I'm presenting at the AAMC in November. I am. We need to talk.
Dallas, go to the last slide. Dr. Helen Drayton Williams is one of Bishop Sumter's members. She's having a Broken But Whole conference on August the 22nd at 4 p.m. For more information, just raise your hand. She'll just want to announce that. Also, this is something we started last year as an outlet for the men, but we kind of, stuff happens. We let the ball drop. But I said I was going to this year, we're going to have something every month. So our next one, so if you can set your calendars, August the 27th, the last Thursday of the month. Well, next month we'll be talking about No More Lost Sons. And so I have some different people coming in. Brother Barnes will be here with me and some other people who does mentoring. Just try to figure out what we can do to not just our boys, but to save our children. Because we have so much stuff coming up in the news where you're seeing them die for crazy things, and then some stuff that they can't even help themselves with. So that's what our talk will be about next month. All right? So let us stand. We're going to close out in prayer. Again, thank you all for coming. And it'll be up online so you can share it. I'm going to find one of my technologically inclined former students to kind of clip it so we can make some clips and send it out, some talking points, because we want this word to get out. This is a conversation that has to continue, and we got to make sure that we're making a difference. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you. We thank you tonight for another chance to be in your house. God, this is still worship. This is still church. This is still outreach. We wanted to talk with each other so we can learn from one another. We're sharpening our irons with one another. We're encouraging one another. And so we just thank you for the opportunity to come together, to reason together, to listen, to hear different point of views, to hear things we didn't know, to express our concerns. We just thank you, God, that you will take this and magnify it. You will take everything that we've done tonight, God, because you control all things. And so we thank you that you are making a difference through us, God. So let us be your hands, and let us be your ears and your feet and your mouthpiece as we proclaim your word and enrich our children, take care of our teachers, and support our schools. I thank you for each and every one of our panelists. Bless the work of their hands, God. Everything that they're planning to do, God, we ask that you make it so in the name of Jesus Christ. God, we pray a special prayer for Ms. Wright as she continues on this campaign trail. God, we thank you that if it's in your will, it shall be done. God, so give her every support. God, we ask that you give her the finances that she needs, the backing that she needs to get her message across. And God, we pray that your will be done. God, thank you for this church, all of my wonderful members and those who came together to make this a success. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen and amen. Have a great night, everybody.
CJ.